She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. She'll put the pressure in your fragile skull. I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes in and goes, you know, and she's got me living in a chemical oven.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another Coffee and Crime Time. I really hope my voice is okay today because Bella headbutted me in the lip right here yesterday, and this morning it is a full-on fat lip like I got decked. So it's a little hard to talk when half of your lip is swollen, and I probably also look a little lopsided, but just try to bear with me. This was unexpected, to say the least. So today's video has been highly requested by many people, and I keep trying to respond back because I actually researched this case and put together all my notes at the beginning of the week, but I wasn't able to record it until today, Friday, because the kids were here. So I keep responding back and saying, oh, I'm recording it on Friday, like it's coming, but the requests keep coming in. So I'm glad to know that a lot of people are interested in this case and interested in the well-being of this young woman we're talking about today. And that young woman is Vanessa Guillen. 20-year-old Private First Class Army Soldier Vanessa Guillen has been missing since April 22nd. She was last seen between 11:30 and 12:30 in the parking lot of the Regimental Engineer Squadron Headquarters at Fort Hood where she worked. Vanessa is reported to have been wearing a black t-shirt, purple workout pants, and black sneakers. And it's also been reported that Vanessa was working earlier that day in the armory room where her car keys, barrack room key, identification card, and wallet were later found. Her white Jeep is still parked at Fort Hood and doesn't appear to be taped off or being treated like evidence in an ongoing missing persons investigation. Before we dive any further in, before we get really started, let's have a quick word from our sponsor, and our sponsor for this video is Ana Luisa Jewelry. When I think about jewelry that I'm interested in purchasing and wearing, I think of unique and interesting pieces, but I also think of jewelry that was responsibly produced. Ana Luisa creates sustainably crafted pieces that bring joy to those who wear them. They believe in bringing luxury jewelry to everyone for a non-luxury price. By cutting out the middleman, Ana Luisa is able to bring you jewelry made with 14-karat gold, sterling silver, and sustainable diamonds for extremely affordable prices. I love finding really interesting pieces that I don't see other places, and I especially love when that jewelry comes with a beautiful, responsible, and sustainable backstory. Now, these are two new pair of earrings I just received from Ana Luisa, and I'm in love with both of them, even though they're so different, because some days I feel like being a more like vintagey, elegant 50s housewife, and some days I feel like reading my horoscope and playing with tarot cards. There is really something for everyone at Ana Luisa, and if you click the link in the description box and use code SLEUTHANIE10, SLEUTHANIE 10, you can get 10% off your Ana Luisa order. The earrings I'm wearing today are called the Lazuli, and they're probably like my favorite earrings so far. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but they're made with these beautiful blue lapis lazuli, but they have gold specks in them. And then there's this organic freshwater pearl drop at the end. They're handcrafted in 100% recycled sterling silver and dipped with a thick layer of 14-karat gold. And then these ones are called the Celeste. They're so cool. They're mismatched earrings. So one is a star and one is a moon. And I just think they're so cute. They're going to be perfect for summer. I get serious, cool, laid back hippie vibes, which is, like I said, so much different than the, elegant 50s housewife vibes that I'm getting from these earrings. But we're all different inside. We like different things, and sometimes we wake up and we want to be a different person. These mismatched moon and star celestial huggy hoops feature sparkling cubic zirconia gems, and they're dipped in 14-karat gold. I think I can now officially say that for the past 6 months, maybe pushing a year, Ana Luisa is the only place that I've purchased jewelry from because I love their pieces. They have new pieces all the time that I'm in love with and I want to get. and I love what they stand for. So thank you so much to Ana Luisa for sponsoring this video and being an amazing company that cares about the environment and about people and about being sustainable. We need more companies like you in the world. And thank you to all of you guys out there for listening to the sponsor, understanding that sponsors are what allows me to continue producing this content and to keep hanging out with you guys several times a week. Okay, now on to the video. And don't forget, if you're interested in checking Ana Luisa out, getting yourself a gift, treating yourself or somebody you love, go in the description box, click on the link, and use code SLEUTHANY10 for 10% off your purchase. So Vanessa Guillen, she is a private in the United States Army. She lives and works at Fort Hood, which is in Texas. This case just really started gaining traction and media coverage in the last month or so. I would say starting in, probably mid or like the first week of June, it started kind of picking up traction and being featured on, the news networks. But she's been missing since April 22nd, and the way that she went missing is incredibly suspicious. Her vehicle is still at Fort Hood. Her car keys, her room key, her identification, still at Fort Hood in the armory room where she was said to be working earlier that day. And Vanessa's parents feel like they really had to make a fuss, and they had to protest, and they had to stand outside of Fort Hood, and they had to make a fuss in order for the Army to take what was going on with Vanessa seriously and investigate it. Vanessa's sister, Mayra, claims that she spoke to Vanessa the night before she was last seen, and at that time they were discussing Vanessa's plans to buy a new car. There's also a Facebook post from somebody who said they were a friend of the missing woman who claimed that Vanessa's phone pinged at a few different locations in Texas the day she went missing, but that information hasn't been confirmed by authorities, and that post has since been made unavailable. It's also really unclear whether the last sighting of Vanessa was by a person, with eyes, or a Fort Hood security camera. That information, that clarification hasn't really been made available to us. Now, of course, I'm sure the people who need to know this, like Vanessa's family, and the people investigating her disappearance, they know whether that last sighting was by a person or a security camera, but we do not know. This past month, the reward for credible information on the whereabouts of Vanessa Guillen has been raised from $15,000 to $55,000. On June 15th, it was raised by the CID, and the CID is the Army Criminal Investigation Command, and they raised it from $15,000 to $25,000. The next day, June 16th, Representative for Texas's 29th Congressional District, Sylvia Garcia, committed another $25,000 in cooperation with the League of United Latin Citizens, and rapper Baby Bash has also added $5,000 to the reward. Now, if you don't remember Baby Bash, you might be younger than me, but if you're my age or older, you should remember Baby Bash. Sugar, how'd you get so high? On June 17th, a surveillance video was released from a restaurant showing Vanessa ordering food. This video was taken on April 15th, which was pretty much just about a week before she went missing, and it shows her getting out of her Jeep and walking inside to get her food. One of the employees claimed that Vanessa had gotten food from that specific location, that specific restaurant before, usually with other soldiers from the base, and she was always approachable and friendly. But on this day, her demeanor was completely different. This employee said, quote, "She didn't talk, she just ordered, she waited, and then left. Before, she used to be really happy, joyful," end quote. Any other day, Vanessa would have chatted with the workers, but this day, she didn't have anything to say to the restaurant staff.
Now, just to be clear, this video is from April 15th, a week before Guillen vanished from Fort Hood. Now, you can see her getting out of her white Jeep and going to get food inside Taquera, Mexico. The owner, Jaime Moreno, says Guillen will often come to his restaurant with other soldiers and friends. When he found out she went missing, it broke his heart because he knew her well. Now, Moreno says he does not speak English and says the last time he saw Guillen, she didn't seem like her normal, cheerful self. In fact, he says she seemed like she was worried about something.
It's
sad that a client, someone who would come here often, would go missing just like that. It makes it even more sad, though, that she went missing and no one knows where she is or where she ended up. The best thing would be for her to show up, but if that doesn't happen, then the truth should come out, and whoever is responsible should be held accountable for this.
According to her family and friends, Vanessa's biggest passion came to her life when she joined the military right out of high school. Her sister said that all Vanessa wanted to do was fight for her country. She was physically active and she enjoyed working out and playing soccer. She liked being with friends and seemed to enjoy her job with the Army, except for one thing. According to Vanessa's mother, her daughter had confessed that she'd been struggling with incidences of sexual harassment on base. There seemed to be two specific occurrences that stand out. Once, when a superior walked in on Vanessa showering, and another verbally insulting her with vulgar remarks in Spanish. The Army's initial statement was that they had no knowledge of these allegations since Vanessa had never reported them. But on June 18th, 3rd Cavalry Regiment Commander Colonel Ralph Overland appointed a team to conduct an investigation into the allegations of sexual harassment. He said, quote, "I opened an investigation concerning the information provided by the Guillen family that PFC Vanessa Guillen was harassed prior to her disappearance. I take allegations of sexual harassment very seriously, and we are conducting a thorough investigation," end quote. The Guillen family lawyer, Natalie Quaham, says she's happy that Fort Hood is finally looking into the sexual harassment claims and taking allegations seriously. She also believes that Vanessa may not have reported the harassment for fear of retaliation. Quaham said, quote, "It's the norm not to, especially for women who are victims because they fear retaliation or they might not be credible. I spoke to several witnesses, and they told me about the sexual harassment and assault statements she made to them by a few different non-commissioned officers and COs. So this makes me concerned. This happened more than one time by more than one person on base," end quote. So Fort Hood is a very large military base located in Killeen, Texas, halfway between Austin and Waco. It was created due to the need of a wide open space to test and train World War II tank destroyers. It's one of the largest U.S. military installations in the world and contains 214,000 acres, holding nearly 65,000 soldiers and family members who call Fort Hood home. It's also been the focus of many scandals. In February of 2019, 19-year-old Private Dylan McCullers was charged with sexual assault and unlawful disclosure of intimate material. The assault occurred on February 10th at a home in the 1600 block of Indian Trail in Harker Heights. Apparently, McCullers not only raped a woman, but videotaped it. The victim later told police that he had slapped and strangled her, and he threatened to release the video if she went to authorities or refused to perform more sexual acts on him in the days after the initial assault. So this Dylan McCullers dude, he rapes this woman, gets it on tape, and then uses the tape to basically blackmail her and extort her and say, not only are you not going to go to the police and turn me in, you're going to continue doing whatever I want, or I release this to everybody. So Dylan McCullers is like a quadruple kind of scumbag. In 2012, 31-year-old Jonathan Bradford Sudeth, a Fort Hood soldier, was charged with repeated sexual assault of a minor under the age of 14, which resulted in a pregnancy, which resulted in Bradford attempting to kill the unborn child. He was offered a plea deal, he rejected it, and he's now serving 25 years in prison. But in my opinion, 25 years in prison is not enough for that. Someday I would like to talk to you about the justice system and how it's flawed when it comes to the sentencing of sexual predators, who are very, very likely to repeat their activities once they get out. But we are not done. In 2015, Sergeant First Class Gregory McQueen pleaded guilty to charges related to allegations that female soldiers at Fort Hood were being used in a sex ring run by McQueen, who, at that time, was part of the U.S. Army's Sexual Harassment and Assault Response Unit at Fort Hood. He pleaded guilty to 15 charges, including allegations that he worked with another soldier to bring at least 2 low-ranking women into the ring, but denied complicity in 6 other charges, including sexual assault. These charges came after a number of high-profile incidences in which military personnel were accused of sexually assaulting or abusing women both in and out of the military. It blows my mind that this guy was essentially running a sex ring out of Fort Hood, And he was supposed to be the one who was responsible for handling allegations and incidences of sexual assaults in the Army. And he did that out of Fort Hood. It's so twisted and so wrong. Just last week, there was an article on military.com which stated 9 Army families are suing their privatized base housing landlords at Fort Hood over what they called life-threatening mold and deplorable conditions that ruined their belongings. They also reported developing asthma, skin rashes, nosebleeds, blurred vision, chronic respiratory issues, and mental distress while living on base. A family even reported that their child began coughing up blood and ended up being diagnosed with severe depression after he made an attempt to take his own life after being forced to throw out his mold-infested toys. Now back to Vanessa. Here's my question. It's pretty clear to me, in my opinion, that Vanessa did not leave that base, or if she did, it was not of her own free will. She left behind her identification card, which would have really been the only way that she could get onto the base, especially during the time that she went missing, because Fort Hood would have been practicing social distancing due to COVID, so they didn't have someone at the gates checking IDs. People would essentially just swipe their card and the gate would automatically open. So if she did somehow leave Fort Hood, it wouldn't have been on her own. Not with her own vehicle still parked there. She wouldn't have left her identification card behind, knowing that it would have been very difficult, if not impossible, to re-enter. For Vanessa to just vanish and not be in contact with her family, her friends, or her boyfriend is clearly a sign that foul play is involved. And at this point, Fort Hood and the U.S. Army agree. Now I know what you guys are going to say out there because you're like me. You try to think of all the options. Well, maybe she forgot her ID card and she left with somebody and she figured that she could just call a friend and have them come to the gate and open it for her. Sure, of course that's very possible. But you're also talking about a soldier who has recently spent 10 weeks in Army boot camp, which is pretty much a program that is there to train you and, make you a very responsible, regimented, strict person. The kind of person who uses hospital corners when they make their bed. The kind of person that probably would not leave their identification behind when they go off base. I do not think that Vanessa left Fort Hood by herself of her own free will. If she did leave the base, then it's most likely somebody grabbed her, threw her in their vehicle, and took her with them. But it's also very possible she could still be on that base somewhere. It is massive, massive. There is so much open land, just so many places that a person could be hidden. Recently, a rumor began circulating on social media that Vanessa's remains had been found, but these rumors were quickly debunked when the family and the authorities said this wasn't the case. However, there were in fact skeletal remains found in a field in Killeen, Texas on Friday, and these remains have been positively identified as another missing Fort Hood soldier, Gregory Waddell Morales. This discovery came from an anonymous tip which led investigators to this field in the 3200 block of Florence Road. Greg Morales was last seen driving his 2018 black Kia Rio outside of the Army base on August 19, 2019. His last known contact with anyone was the next day, and he was scheduled to be discharged from the Army just a few days after he went missing. Apparently, Gregory's wife used Carfax to track his vehicle in December, and they found it in Dallas, and it's now in the possession of the Army CID. Authorities believe his death is due to foul play, which I think is fairly obvious, considering that he was found buried in a field. But they do not believe that Gregory Morales' death and Vanessa Guillen's disappearance are connected. I mean, it's not a secret that there is a history of suppression and cover-up in the Army and the military in general when it comes to crimes. They essentially have their own police force. They have their own legal justice system. The Denver Post spent 9 months investigating how the military handles sexual abuse complaints and domestic violence complaints in their own ranks, and they found that the military routinely fails to prosecute those accused of such crimes. This leaves the victims vulnerable to retaliation and even threats against their lives. I've included the link to this very well done series in the description box if you're interested in learning more, but it's honestly incredibly shocking and sad. Jennifer Beer, a Colorado Springs therapist who has counseled military victims, stated, quote, "The military system is like a get-out-of-jail-free card," end quote. The Denver Post also reported that leniency towards sexual assault crimes is routine, and over the past 10 years, twice as many accused Army sex offenders were given administrative punishment as were court-martialed. So essentially that means they were let off with a slap on the wrist, administrative punishments. So maybe you get demoted, or maybe you're stuck on desk duty for 6 months, or maybe you have to clean out the toilet. Administrative punishment in the military is non-judicial punishment. And that word would have been a lot easier to say if my mouth wasn't swollen. According to Article 15 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, NJP, or non-judicial punishment, permits commanders to administratively discipline troops without a court-martial. Punishment can range from reprimand to reduction in rank, correctional custody, loss of pay, extra duty, and/or restrictions. The receipt of non-judicial punishment does not constitute a criminal conviction. It is equivalent to a civil action, but is often placed in the service record of the individual. So like I said, a slap on the wrist, like they don't get court-martialed, which means they don't get charged. They don't get put in front of a judge or a jury of their peers. They don't really have any real repercussions. It's as if you were grounding your kid, in my opinion. However, in the civilian world, 4 of 5 people arrested for rape are prosecuted. 2 surveys from the Department of Veterans Affairs show that in the past decade, between 21 and 30% of women in the Army reported a rape or attempted rape, even though the Pentagon puts that number in the single digits. Many times, these men are higher in the ranks than women. They are commanding officers. And in the Army, you're taught to obey the chain of command, to not ask questions, and really to not think of yourself or for yourself. It's we're doing this for the greater good kind of thing. And listen, I don't want to sound anti-military. I'm not anti-military. On my mom's side of the family, almost all of her brothers and their kids are in the military. My brother was a Marine. My grandfather fought in World War II. He was a medic. My uncles all fought in Vietnam. I am very pro-military. I respect them. I could never do it. But I respect them and what they offer, and I am so grateful, so grateful. You will never even understand. I'm so grateful that these brave men and women give their lives, essentially, to protect this country and the people in it. I never want anybody to think that I am anti-military. I'm certainly not. I'm so very grateful. However, I think we can all agree that just like in, the civilian world, there's bad people and there's good people. And it just happens that in the military, the bad people kind of fly under the radar and slip through the cracks and get away with a little bit more than they would if they were a civilian. This does not take away from the thousands and thousands of others who are brave and strong and do it for the right reason, and I give them my undying gratitude. But I also do know and recognize that it can be very secretive. And when you're in the military, these people are your second family. If you go to war, these are the people who are going to have your back. If you go to war, these are the people who are going to protect you. Or if something happens to you, if you get shot, if you get taken down, they're going to be the ones who make sure they get you back to your family. I understand the loyalty, but sometimes I do think that loyalty can turn into a cover-up. At this point, Vanessa Guillen is still missing, and her family is demanding answers from the Army and asking that the public keep an eye out for her. She's 5'2", 126 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Now, her family was supposed to meet with the Army on Tuesday, and a press conference will follow. But if you have any information on the whereabouts of Vanessa, there are a few phone numbers you can call. In Pursuit with John Walsh has a hotline where you can call or text 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that number is 833-378-7783. You can also call the Army CID Special Agents at 254-495-7767 or the Military Police Desk at 254-287-4001. If at any time you forget these numbers or don't have them handy and you hear or you see something, you can also call your local law enforcement agency and they will pass the information on to the necessary parties. Please help bring this beautiful, brave young woman back to her family and back to her life, which she should be allowed to live, and she has many, many more years to live it. I think it's very weird, ironic, suspicious even, that they found the remains of another missing Fort Hood soldier while they were searching for a current missing Fort Hood soldier, that is really, it's kind of crazy because it makes you wonder how many other missing people are there out there? How many other bodies are just laying around that you're going to kind of stumble over while searching for somebody else? For the Army to say they don't believe the two are connected, I get that. They were, over a year apart, them going missing, so I don't believe that they would have known each other. However, they are both from the same military base. They're both soldiers, and maybe they both had some issues with the Army. Vanessa had her claims of harassment, and Gregory Morales was right on the verge of being discharged from the Army. It's hard for me to figure out exactly why, whether it was his decision or theirs, but either way, he was pretty young, so he clearly wasn't going for a career in the Army. He was leaving for some reason. He may not have been completely happy there. Now, according to this KCENTV.com article, the mother of Gregory Morales is pushing for a change in the deserter status of her son. It's been 5 days since Gregory's remains were found in a shallow grave. It's been about 10 months since he disappeared from Fort Hood. After going missing, he was listed as AWOL. Later on, he was labeled as a deserter. According to the Army's list, it appears he's still listed as one. Obviously, Gregory's mother, Kim, has an issue with this because Gregory wasn't a deserter. He went missing, and then somebody obviously killed him because he didn't take his own life and then bury himself in a field. His mother, Kim Waddell, says, quote, "My issue is he's a soldier. He died a soldier and he deserves to be treated like one, not just thrown away and forgotten," end quote. So apparently, as Gregory's mother is trying to make funeral arrangements for her son that she just realized this past week was dead instead of missing, because when they're missing, there's still hope they'll come back to you or that they're okay out there, right? But she just found out he's dead 5 days ago. And she gets a call from Fort Hood and they tell her that Gregory's body is in Dallas. And since he's considered non-military, it will be up to her to make arrangements to figure out a way to transport his body to where they live in Temple. This article goes on to say that when Kim, Gregory's mother, reached out to her casualty officer out of Fort Sill, she was told they were planning to clear Gregory's name. Then she got a call back that clarified that until the autopsy results came back showing Gregory had been dead for 10 months, they were going to put his date of death as last Friday. So basically, he would still have deserter status. So this is kind of disgusting. So they want to make sure he's been dead the whole time before they take away his deserter status, because he could have, disappeared on his own and deserted the Army, even though he was about to be discharged in a couple of days. And then something randomly, got to him at some point after he deserted, so he could possibly still be a deserter. And this makes no logical sense. Like I said, he was about to be discharged. And is this really the hill you want to die on, is what I would ask the Army. Is this the hill you want to die on? This poor woman has lost her son. He's been missing for, 10 months, the better part of a year. And now you're going to be petty about his status in the Army? So the public affairs officer for the 1st Cavalry Division, Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Brodegam, sent 6 News a statement saying that they were in touch with the family. And here's what Colonel Christopher Brodegam says. He says, "We're deeply saddened by the passing of Private Gregory Morales. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family, friends, and fellow troopers as they grieve his passing. The unit is fully cooperating with the local authorities who are leading the investigation. We cannot take further action on his status until an autopsy is complete and the cause of death and the time of death are determined. Unit leadership is in contact with his family and providing support as permitted by Army policy. During this difficult time, we will remain in contact with the family and investigations through this process." So Gregory Morales was 2 weeks away from completing his 6 years of service to the Army. He would have been free and clear. No issues. 2 weeks. And for months after he went missing, according to Gregory's family, Fort Hood basically didn't help look for him, and they just said he deserted. He ran away. He left the Army. This is the same excuse that the Army made when Vanessa Guillen first went missing. They said she just left. She deserted. Do I hope that Vanessa deserted? Of course, I honestly hope that Vanessa deserted, that she ran away and she's safe somewhere. That would be the best possible outcome. However, she was just on the phone with her sister the day before she went missing. They were talking about getting a new car. Was there something wrong with her car? Was it breaking down? Is that why she didn't take it that day? Maybe is that why she grabbed a ride with somebody else? Who did she grab a ride from? Let's pull the tape, the videotape from the surveillance cameras at Fort Hood. Let's see who she talked to that day. Let's see if she left with anybody. There's got to be a surveillance camera at the gates of Fort Hood. Let's see who came in and out of Fort Hood after noon, or 11:30 to noon, when Vanessa was last seen. Take every license plate, take every name of every single car that drove out of Fort Hood after she went missing, and track down all of those leads. And if you don't find anything, then you need to start looking on the base, looking all over those thousands and thousands of acres of Fort Hood. Because it's not right to just pretend that this girl is gone and it doesn't matter and she'll just turn up dead in a field like Gregory Morales did. That's not right. You took responsibility. As the Army, you took responsibility for these kids. You recruited them. You promised them the world. You gave them something to believe in and something to be passionate about, which is great, but you are responsible for protecting them while they're under your care. And Vanessa and Gregory were both under the care of Fort Hood and the U.S. Army. So I would like to see some accountability. That's going to be it for today. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Remember to check out the link for Ana Luisa Jewelry and get 10% off using code SLEUTHANY10. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Share this video if you think it's worth sharing. And also remember that I love you and I hope you have an amazing day. Stay kind and stay beautiful. And I'll see you very soon. Bye.
Straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly, and so you got to let it go. I got blood.